Skylight. And the difference in whites that you can see here, this is Dicor and this is cheap silicone caulk, which is not supposed to be up here for this. It doesn't work, it cracked. You can see, like, when I start to pull this stuff up, it's very different than caulk. If you touch it, it's still very rubbery, but look at that. Look at the mess that's under there. This all has to come out, and I need to look at it and make sure everything's okay, but it's still kind of sticky, which is kind of the whole point of Dicor. That's why you shouldn't use caulk. The caulk loses its stickiness, but this stuff stays pliable. I'm just going to clean all this off and see what I've got to work with. I've started to pull some of it up. Underneath is the putty and the Dicor, you can tell, and it's let in moisture. This was almost all caulk. So as much as I don't want to, all this Dicor and everything needs to come up, because the last thing I want is to be out on the road and have a leak start in and be forced to do it if we're in an area where it rains a lot. I believe this RV originally came from Oregon, and it does rain a lot in Oregon, so this stuff is really sticky. Still, it's hard to get up. It's like taffy. It has the consistency of taffy still, and who knows how long this has been on the car. We're vested in a kid, extraordinarily nice. She's a killer queen. Oh yeah. So check this out. So here's the screw that's under the Dicor. It's obviously not supposed to look like that. It's completely rusted through. So yeah, not even sure how I'm gonna get that out. That looks like a little job. But unfortunately, some of the other screws that I've taken off look the same way. They're rusty. This Dicor is supposed to prevent that from happening. So before I put it back on, I'm gonna use all stainless, and I'm gonna give it a nice new coat. And if you see under here, I just scraped up this caulk here, and there's water under there. And it hasn't rained here, for several days. So the silicone has allowed it to seep in, and now it's just kind of sitting there. And I'm just lucky that I don't have water damage underneath this thing. Luckily this fiberglass top at least has been holding up, but this is just another reason why you don't use silicone instead of Dicor. Use what they recommend. So all the screws are out, and if you notice the commonality, they're all rusted, which is not good. So let's open her up. So this is what we have to deal with. This is the interior part of the Skylight, and I'm taking off the exterior, and definitely has a little bit of a musty smell in here, but it is intact, which is good. But I'm going to clean all this out and reapply, stick this thing back in there, and put her all back together. Maybe give her a good little bleach soak too, because it does look like there is water damage under here. It's an hour or so later, and after a lot of scrubbing and using denatured alcohol and Goo Gone, I'm finally at a point where I feel like it's clean enough and I've got enough of the silicone off. Goo Gone works great for a fiberglass roof. Don't use it for a rubber roof, but in this case it works fine. There's a little bit of debris and I want to clean off the Goo Gone residue, but I'm going to let it dry off a little bit before I start again. I've got to clean off this guy now. I got to scrape all the putty and everything off of here and get him cleaned up before I put it back on. But this is the final look of the interior part of the Skylight. So let's work on putting it back together now. So I'm up here on what is probably the hottest day of the year so far, the sunniest day, so sorry if I'm overexposed, but the sunniest day of the year to replace this Skylight. Now I guess that's a good thing because I prefer it to be sunny than rainy, but we're gonna put this sucker back on. I've had to wait overnight, but she's all clean, at least as clean as she's gonna be, and gonna lay down some putty, some Dicor, and get her going. So just bought this online on Amazon. I'll post a link to it below, but it's just a vent installation kit. It comes with a bunch of screws and a putty strip, which you need for a fiberglass roofed RV. If you're doing a rubber roofed RV, you will need to look into something different. I don't know what that is. I think it's butyl, I'm not sure how you say it, but if you have a rubber roofed RV, check it out. Don't follow my instructions because I'm talking specifically about this kind of RV. And then I got the this same stuff that we used around the vents, the Dicor lap sealant that levels itself, which makes it look nice and neat when it's done. And then I went out, because all of my screws were rusty, I went out and I bought some stainless steel screws so that they don't rust. I bought them a little bit thicker than the originals that were in there and a teeny bit longer, like a 1/4 inch, because I've had issues before trying to replace screws up here on this roof and it just doesn't bite into the wood and the styrofoam underneath. So I got them a little bit thicker. In this case, they're 14 gauge, 1 1/4 inch sheet metal screws, but they're closest that I could find to match what was taken out. And again, they were all rusty, so I don't want to reuse them. So I'm going to use some stainless so they won't rust on me again. But let's go ahead and get started before I get sunstroke. So here's the final product. The Skylight is back on. It's been a couple weeks. Sorry for the delay, but I wasn't able to film the final Skylight until several weeks had passed and several, looks like years worth of dirt has accumulated. But again, this is Florida and it gets dirty pretty quick. So this is the finished Skylight. You can see how the Dicor has settled there into like a hardened marshmallow fluff. But it goes all the way around. It forms a good seal now. I used the stainless steel, if you remember, and shouldn't have any rust issues. It looks really ugly, and I probably should clean this all up before I do it, but thus is the nature of living in Florida. And all of this here is just the leftover junk. If you remember when I scraped all this stuff off, this is the new stuff that I put on here. So if you're ever in the same situation, I hope this helps you. I hope if you're ever switching out your Skylight, that this will be a good, smooth tutorial for you to follow. Thanks for watching 10,000 Rows. Please like, please subscribe to our channel so that you get updates whenever we put out new content. Thanks again, and see you at the next one.